didn't finish my degree at John Moores Uni. I did technology management, but didn't finish it. Shouldn't really admit that. I fell into retail because that's sort of, I just needed to be paid. I then fell into professional football, obviously. Look, I'm a Liverpool fan, but I ended up being a community coach at Everton Football Club because they paid me. Look, my careers teacher told me to be either a nuclear physicist or a coal miner, which was absolutely useless. And it was made even worse by the fact that my careers teacher was my mum at the time. So look, there was all kinds of problems, obviously, back then. Did a degree in technology management, so a bit of a geek, fell into retail, fell into professional football. Look, I'm not a great player, but I did, whilst at Everton, stumble onto that real connection in here, who I was when I fell across the term corporate social responsibility. And I hate to admit it, well, this was about 25 years ago. I'm feeling really, really old at the moment. Now, that was cutting edge back then. It was a bit overly philanthropic, a bit of social offsetting, a bit superficial. Lots of big companies planting trees. Back then, there weren't courses in any of this. Nobody even knew those types of jobs existed. I fell into that space and probably, luckily, at quite a good time. So I worked closely with an organisation called Business in the Community whilst I was at Everton. And also, because I'm a bit cheeky, I'm one of those like childlike people who just says, why can't we do that? Why can't we do that? So at Everton, I was responsible for creating the charity because I was frustrated that the club weren't really doing everything that it could do. And I was exposed to all of these social pressures and environmental opportunities. And I wanted to really encourage Everton to explore everything it could be. My personal mission, if you like, is trying to get businesses to do more good stuff, because the problem is they're responsible for most of our problems, especially over decades and centuries. So for me, that's definitely an area to focus on. And so much is changing so fast. So after leaving Everton, because you can't have too much football, and creating the charity, I also created their disability football program and ended up managing the England amputee football team, which was a surreal experience, traveling the world with a bunch of players with one leg and a goalkeeper with one arm, and trying to carry all equipment was a nightmare. But an absolute eye-opener. And I think even that England stuff exposed me, again, another bit of a eureka moment, was me being naturally a bit more of a global citizen. I think sometimes we need to go out and explore and put ourselves in strange places just to find out who we are and what we want to do and where our real passions lie. You can't do that when you leave university. You just don't know. You haven't had enough exposure or experience in so many things. Bringing everything right up to date. Look, I mentioned I've done this for a long time. I have been really passionate about this stuff. We've created a few big changes ourselves, but something has changed dramatically in the last 12 months. I've been trying to persuade and sometimes bully people into doing more good stuff, because there's always been an excuse not to do it, whether it's been COVID, austerity, Brexit, cost of living, especially in the private sector. There's always a reason, we don't really need to do that yet. Yeah, they do. They're so far behind, and we're in a climate emergency situation. So just to build on one of the points Anna made, I'll go even further. I'll tell you now that every job needs to be a climate job and will become a climate related job before you even realize. The pace of change over the last 12 months probably equals the pace of change over the previous 24 years in my perspective. I can see some of the things that are coming, whether they're ecosystem tipping points, legislation changes, even the use of language. There's so many buzzwords out there at the moment. The trendy ones, ESG, which I think is absolute rubbish. That's the investment community trying to do less bad, not more good. It is about risk management rather than saving the planet. That's what we really need to do. Definitely one to watch is net zero. And as an indicator of the pace of change that I guarantee that 90% of businesses don't know is coming. COP26, when we held it in this country, the UK government announced a public procurement legislation upgrade. So every contract over £5 million that the government paid out, and the government pays lots of contracts, has lots of spending power, that every single contract had to have a net zero carbon management plan and a credible target. Okay, most businesses go, but I'm not big enough to win a £5 million contract. Hidden within that was that all suppliers to the people who win those contracts have to be compliant with this carbon management process and carbon footprints and setting targets and mitigation plans. Now, that was a big thing 2 years ago and quite a brave thing, because procurement is going to be the way forward. Because look, in the world of business, follow the money. Really, really simple. Follow where the money goes. Bringing it right up to date. 10 days ago, I was shocked. And it's not often I'm speechless, as Simone will testify to. I sat on a webinar just like this, and the NHS were talking about their net zero aspirations. And yes, they have their £5 million procurement threshold that the government forced on them. They're going to upgrade that. So me and my business partner, who again has worked in this space for 25 years, he won the British Chamber of Commerce Global Climate Impact Award last year. He knows his stuff. We thought that the NHS might be a bit bold and drop that 5 million threshold to 3 million, maybe in a couple of years. And then maybe 2 or 3 years after that, they'll drop it to 2 million, or 1 year. And maybe in 10 years, they might drop it to 0. But that would be very brave. The bullet point on the presentation 10 days ago stated publicly that they've dropped that threshold to 0 from April 2024. That sounds like a little thing. But if you consider how much the NHS spends, every single procurement from April 2024 will need to have net zero compliance for all suppliers, not just the people who win the bin contracts. But if you want to sell a pencil to the NHS, you better be a net zero supplier. Businesses are not ready for that. They're not even close to ready for that. They've just tried to get through COVID and survive cost of living prices and energy bills. People like yourself are going to be dealing with that. And that plus biodiversity issues, because net zero is this really, really narrow tunnel. It is not sustainability. It's not waste. It's not air pollution. It's not, natural capital stuff. So, look, every single job will be a climate or a sustainability related job. And if you've got that understanding and those skills, you're in a really strong bargaining position right now, today. I've had 4 local, well-known companies tell me that they've been caught out in interviews with new talent by not being able to answer questions that the candidate has asked them about work-life balance, about volunteering, about sustainability, about what's this B Corp thing. It is massive. And there's a great way that if you're talented, if you're passionate, if you've got a great CV, you can interview the person that you're trying to get the job from. And you tell them whether you want to work for them or not. Be bold, be brave, because the companies that can't answer the question probably won't be doing very well, and you probably wouldn't be there very long. So the more that you understand the agenda, the stronger position you're going to be in, not only to get a job, but to get a better paid job, because everyone is going to have to get their head around this at some point. And lots of people my age and a little bit older, mostly males, they're a bunch of dinosaurs. They do not know what is coming. You do, because you lots of modules and lots of education about it now. So for me, the big three buzzwords of the moment to get your head around are absolutely net zero. What is that? It's a bit boring. It's about measuring energy bills and chasing for data. ESG is a bit rubbish, but that's about following the money, because that's where the money has to go. And then even, this month is something called B Corp month. If you haven't heard about B Corp, you missed a great event this morning, apart from me speaking, which again, my voice is starting to go and it probably wasn't the best bit. But that's almost a badge of credibility for good businesses. So you might not have heard of B Corp, but you probably heard of Patagonia, Innocent Smoothies. Sorry, I've got a few props on my desk from the event this morning. Cafe Direct. There are a lot of companies trying to be bold and progressive, and B Corp's an interesting one to explore for that. I did put a couple of names in the chat. Adam from Google, he's amazing. He's head of sustainability for Europe for Google. They do some spectacular work. Whatever, people have lots of different perceptions about business, especially big businesses and maybe Google. But he shares so many great jobs in so many great companies. And there's just so many of them these days. I look at them and go, oh, I wouldn't mind working for Nike or Google, because a lot of them, whilst they are big, and every business is imperfect, none of them are great. They've all got skeletons somewhere. Just some of them are a lot better than others. It tends to be the ones that aren't in the headlines that are the ones that you should have probably avoid. For me, and probably another big tip to give you is be cheeky, ask for experience. Just if you reach out to somebody with sustainability or net zero or ESG in their title, you will probably get a response. Forget about trying to go through the HR department. Forget that. They get bombarded by thousands and thousands of people. But if you can share a certain set of values or like-mindedness, look, I know Adam at Google. How on earth do I know the head of sustainability for Google? Social media. Again, it's such an open community, because most people who gravitate towards these jobs have a set of values, have a certain empathy and connectivity with the natural world and social justice. It's a wonderful community globally. We often say a 2030 hub. We're probably better connected than Kevin Bacon. And I'm not exaggerating, but we can get to the chief exec of Microsoft within 2 people. We can get to Barack Obama. We can get to so many people. But I'm also an advisor for the UN Foundation. I was in the room when Greta Thunberg was shouting at Donald Trump, and I'm like, a huge imposter syndrome. How the flipping heck did I get here? But it's because sustainability needs to be done. It needs great people. It needs people who are provocative and bold. You've got to be cheeky to get a foot in the door. And LinkedIn, Twitter, has gone downhill since Elon Musk bought it. But just say hello, engage in those conversations, ask for help. They will, what's the worst they can do? Ignore you. Ask again, ask somebody else until you get a response. I think the challenge that you will have is whether you try to be a sustainability or a good business type jack of all trades like me, which is hard work. It's really hard work. There's too many things. I have huge overwhelm, stress levels and ethical fatigue every time I go to Waitrose. And these are what I should buy or shouldn't buy, or how the heck did I get there in a car when I should have been on a bike or whatever. But the 3 sort of categories of jobs I would think about exploring. The future of sustainability for me is in 3 areas. 1, data and measurement. That will become everything. We've sort of got there on the green side of it. We can measure carbon and waste better, still imperfect. But if you'll become an expert in measurement and analysis of that is going to be the future, because that's going to be everything. Every business, every public sector, organization, everybody. The other huge growth area will have to be innovation. So once we know, and look, we know what the challenges are, we know what a lot of the answers are, we just haven't got the right tools to make those solutions real. Innovation is real key, and pragmatic innovation as well. You know, we need some creative thinkers in this. You know, do you think of the teenage guy, Boyan, who created the Ocean Cleanup Project? A teenager who wanted to take the plastic out of the Pacific Ocean. He's doing it. He's had millions and millions of investment, and he's removed hundreds of tons of plastic from the Pacific Ocean garbage patch. He was a teenage kid with an idea, you know, not an old fart like me who thinks you can't do it because you've had that knocked out of you. You need people who will change the world. And then the other section, and this is the really important one, is middle management, because that's where sustainability fails in most companies. You have the person at the top, the chief executive, the managing director, the mayor of the city, making big announcements. We're going to be sustainable. We're going to be carbon, whatever. But it never gets done. It's then passed down to be delivered by middle management. That is going to be a huge, huge growth area. How you manage teams and how you can connect the big, bold ideas of strategic and leadership thinkers and how that gets done. That's always been a problem, but it will be a huge part of the solution going forward. Look, I'm talking too much and I've got no idea how long I've been talking, folks. So Laura, Lisa, have I covered enough there? Is there any